Devin Booker was robbed of being an all-star in 2025. Or was he? We're unpacking it on another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Of course, brought to you by Branded Bills. Elevate your brand like I am right now with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And I know that if his hair wasn't looking so good today, the guy I've got with me, Espo, would be rocking Branded Bills just like me. Espo, fresh off of a trip from Denver, the Phoenix Suns. Of course, lots of news has come out, Jimmy Butler, but we're going to talk about All-Star and snubs. And what was your initial reaction to Devin Booker not being selected to the game this year?
I'm probably one of the few people that didn't feel like he was actually snubbed. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Narrative is what the All-Star game's all about. It's 100%, what have you done this year in terms of your team winning, in terms of you compared to yourself the last few years? Devin Booker struggled in numerous spots this year, and coming off of the playoffs last year, there was already a stigma in terms of that. And if you're going up against, in theory, Anthony Edwards for a spot, well, people are already going to lean towards Ant because he beat you in the playoffs. Like, I don't think this was some egregious error like it had been in the past, right? And so I'm not gonna lose my mind over the fact that Devin Booker didn't get selected to an all-star team here. I have before, but this isn't the case for me now.
Thanks for watching Southwest Bias. We appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Now, so my initial thought was, going into this, I would not have been surprised if Devin Booker did or did not make the all-star game, right? He's definitely one of the borderline players. Now, has he lived up to Devin Booker standards as far as what we've grown to know and love from him? No, not this season. But statistically speaking, he's not exactly slouching. 25.5 points per game, 6.7 assists per game, right? Decent splits all across the board. Not 27 points per game like Devin Booker, right? But if you look at the roster, you're going to have to take some people off, right? We can talk about expanding the all-star roster, which I think everybody's on board with. Yeah. But those aren't the rules we're playing with. Anthony Edwards, like you mentioned, I feel like you're not going to really debate about Anthony Edwards.
I mean, you could. I understand statistically in a couple categories he's lesser than Booker this year, but again, narrative, he beat Devin Booker. Yeah. Right? Like that's
I think the problem
and people already viewed him as the best shooting guard going into this year.
The problem with that, and I think the problem that, including myself, a lot of Suns fans have with the winning part of it being incorporated, is that when the Suns were winning, it was always like, oh, well, you don't pick all-stars based off of team success and blah, 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 like head-to-head. You pick all-stars based off of the season and the individual player. It does feel like the goalposts shift. Even if this year he wouldn't have gotten in, it does feel like the goalposts shift on Booker for almost everything.
Yeah, and that's just the NBA, right? It's who's in the hottest team, what market, like what do we need to get on television? Like, I know that they'll act like, well, this is solely... There's a thumb on the scale in some ways. I guarantee it is. And you know what? You're never going to be voted in as a starter as Devin Booker because the fan vote takes so much. And let's be honest, Suns fans don't vote like that. And Devin Booker doesn't have the national love and stands like KD does. So the fact, and that's not a comparing KD.
I get what you're saying.
KD deserved to be there and where he is, but Devin Booker doesn't have that kind of support nationally. So you're not going to move into that starting lineup. So you're always going to be fighting the narrative side of it when it comes to these games. And this year, the fact that for most of this voting and the open time to decide who was an all-star, this team struggled. They were below 500. Yeah. Right? So...
I mean, all-star voting for fans started December 19th, which was like prime in the middle of the real start of the demise of the Suns, and when vibes were like really low. Like, you'd already started losing without Kevin Durant. You're like, when are we going to get back on track? And it just continued to snowball.
Well, and you got to keep in mind, coaches, I mean, who are part of this vote, in who makes it as reserves, they are not watching everything. They've got a general feel for what's going on in the league. And so the perception is that the Suns are disappointing right now, and that Kevin Durant has gone above and beyond, and he's the one guy holding the ship together. So that's going to play a part too. I mean, it's a meaningless game. Let's be honest.
It's a meaningless game, but when it comes to deciding Hall of Fame and ranking,
okay,
you throw All-Stars.
It shouldn't be included.
You throw All-Stars
though.
No, but it is.
That's like getting into Harvard because you were prom queen.
No,
Who cares?
Okay, being like a 2, 3, 4-time All-Star, which Booker's a 4-time All-Star now, you could argue he should have more, even outside of this year, right? Including multiple injury replacements for him in those All-Star selections. When it's all said and done, guys that are 9, 10, 11, 12-time All-Stars, it does matter.
All NBA
just
is
the
a
game
billion times more important than All-Star.
I'm not saying it's not, but being an All-Star is important to your legacy and your career.
It shouldn't be,
but it is.
Because it is the most meaningless thing in sports to be voted an All-Star. And we argue about it every year, and then we get less of an argument about all NBA teams or NFL All-Pro. That's what matters. That's where it really has an impact. That actually has an impact on your contract now in the NBA. All-Star does not matter and should not play into your legacy. It's all NBA. It's rings. It's MVPs. It's winning percentage. It's where you rank in for a specific franchise. Those things are what should matter. All-Star Weekend is a glorified Comic-Con for basketball that's fun for the fans in most cases, but should not matter in the greater picture of things anymore. It's not the 80s. These aren't guys fighting to have a great All-Star game, and there's nothing else. There's no dunk contest or hoopla around it. It's just that game. This is simply a glorified exercise at this point and should not impact your legacy. Anything that fans vote on shouldn't impact your legacy as a basketball player.
I get it, and I understand your opinion. I just don't agree because
You're allowed to be wrong.
I know what I'm saying. You look at Kevin Durant, right? 15-time All-Star, started in double-digit games, right? When it goes down and you talk about his career, that's going to be in the first 3 sentences. Same thing with LeBron, same thing with Jokic, same thing with Steph, who's starting this year.
It should be rings.
Just because the game itself is trash, and this is a completely different conversation, but just because the game itself is trash and the NBA has soiled All-Star Weekend the same way the NFL has soiled the Pro Bowl, like All-Star and Pro Bowl completely different because All-Star is still it's still limited spots, right? It still can take somewhat of a screenshot of that season. So let's get back. I get what you're saying. Let's get back to Book though.
Oh yeah, but I think it all ties together because who cares? I'm
not saying he cares.
But honestly, if he does and he didn't get there and he feels like he was snubbed, great, because then you're going to get FU Devin Booker.
Hopefully.
And that's a guy that you need. I mean, I think it was 2023 was the last time he was snubbed, right? I believe. And then he went on to average, I think, something like 30 points right after that. Like, I'm fine with an upset Devin Booker, right? And that's just not going to bother me. And in the end, he's about to break the franchise all-time leading scorer list, right? That's going to matter more to legacy than, he didn't make the All-Star game in 2025.
It's not the most important thing, but I do think that
who are you going to remove to put him in?
To be completely honest with you, one of the names that's at the top of the list to be taken off of the Western Conference All-Stars is a name that never would be, because not only where the game is being played, but because the fans voted him in, Devin Booker and Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is on a worse team than Devin Booker. He is averaging 22.3 points per game, 6.3 assists per game, 4.7 rebounds per game.
It's called legacy and fan support.
But I'm saying if we're talking purely from basketball, that's why I said it would never happen. From a basketball perspective, Devin Booker is having a better season than Steph Curry.
Is he having a bigger impact? Because that's part of this.
That's why he's in with the fan vote.
Without Steph Curry, I think the Warriors are significantly worse than the Suns without Devin Booker.
Maybe because they don't have a KD.
Curry's literally the only freaking person on that roster, and that has an impact on it too. So
what about James Harden? James Harden, 21.7 points per game, 8.4 assists per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, on a slightly better team than the Suns. But statistically,
they've been a significantly better and more consistent team. And James Harden, with without Kawhi Leonard has been the focal point of that. Like, look, you can split hairs over this, but James Harden, based on the narrative and what his team has done and what he's accomplished, well, his team's doing that, he's going to make the All-Star team 100 times out of 100 over Devin Booker. And he's James Harden in LA. Like, that's just the reality of this. The guy that, if we're talking, I don't even know if to me, there isn't a guy, if you're simply talking basketball and impact on a team, that I would put in over or take out over Devin Booker.
Well, there are a couple more names on here. We're going to go through those and probably get in some more all-star shenanigans. Of course, after I remind everybody that this edition of Southwest Bias and all these editions of Southwest Bias is brought to you by our friends over at Branded Bills. When I say elevate your brand, I mean it with Branded Bills, because
Elevate
right now,
your head,
look
too.
at this. Look, I'm going to turn around. This is for our video listeners. If you're on audio, I apologize, but look at that.
They'd be video viewers.
With me on camera, maybe they're listeners. But that is our custom PHNX Phoenix hat. Now,
Why didn't you spin it? Why'd you turn? You could have spun the hat around.
It would mess up the
talking.
hair
Oh,
up front.
okay.
You know, it's just one of those things, right? So we have our own PHNX custom gear. You can have it for your own business. Maybe you're a part of a fantasy football league that's been going on for about a decade or so, and you want to rep that and get custom gear. Branded Bills is the perfect place to do that. Plus, they have Suns gear, Footprint Center. You can get ASU gear, U of A gear if you are like that, or just other great gear about the state of Arizona, and all of it with fantastic quality snapback, struckers, fitted beanies, or tees. Branded Bills has you covered. Plus, you can get a little money off. Head to brandedbills.com. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. You know, we talk about bus drivers when it comes to the NBA. Well, how about autonomous cars, right? Not driverless, but autonomous cars with our friends over at Waymo.
I have not been, and I cannot wait.
You need to.
I've talked to Max. I am taking a trip. I think I might do it to spring training.
Wow.
And use a Waymo to go out there and enjoy myself at a spring training game.
Well, I want you to close your eyes and imagine this, okay? Imagine the pageantry, okay? You open up your Waymo One app. Okay. You hail your autonomous car. It is not ride sharing. It is solely for Espo.
Good.
Okay.
That's the way I like it. I don't like to share my
you.
car with people.
You're stepping into an all-electric Jaguar I-Pace, zero emissions.
Same car I drive. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're whipping over there. And you're stepping into a vehicle and a service that has over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience on over 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. The first company to fully serve autonomous rides with no human beings behind the wheel in 2015. You're safe, you are secure, and you're pulling up to spring training in style, all because you.
And I don't have to talk to
nobody.
I don't have to. I can just be my.
You can talk. You can talk to yourself.
No. I don't have to talk to anybody, and I prefer that after doing this job.
All you have to do is download the Waymo One app and ride today. The only downside is because it's not ride sharing. You don't, by happenstance, go into a Jaguar all-electric I-Pace with Espo. That's the only downside.
Is there a Waymo 2 app where...
Not yet.
No, okay.
Waymo 2 is coming up next. Now, we can go through the rest of the roster. I think it's pretty quick. Like, Victor Wembanyama deserves to be an all-star. Alperen Sengun is the only Houston Rocket on the roster. You need to have one of the top teams in the West.
Second in the West.
Right.
So.
Jaren Jackson Jr., Memphis is a better team than Phoenix. Mm-hmm. It was between him and Ja. He's been more consistent.
And you count his defensive impact.
Exactly. Anthony Davis is interesting. Lakers still a better team, though, right? And great stats from AD, 25 points and 12 rebounds a game.
You know what, though? Injury, that could be Devin Booker's spot.
Well, that's Mr. Devin Booker. Well, he's not the only snub, though, either, right? So Jalen Williams statistically is not great, but the Thunder are clearly the best team in the West. They have Mark Dagnall coaching, SGA starting. So you would probably assume that one of those teams is going to have two players from it. Mm-hmm. So you start thinking to yourself, well, what the hell are you really supposed to do? Well, Devin Booker was speaking to media members out there before the Suns take on the Warriors tonight. And he said that he is a fan of expanding all-star roster. Says, quote, I think there are enough talented guys out there that are deserving. He says, I mean, you look like Kyrie Irving, Norman Powell. Those guys are having unbelievably efficient years and winning games. And on the East, guys like Trae Young, LaMelo Ball that are just putting up unheard of numbers. There's so much talent in there, so the more talent in there, the better I think. I think that is the most universally accepted thing is expand the all-star rosters. Why not?
Great. So there'll be 3 or 4 guys that likely sit on the back end of the bench and don't play. Look, you can expand the rosters, whatever. I think we're at a point where you just name the All-Stars and don't let fans vote. You have the coaches and the players vote, and they don't play a game. And if you want it to count as something, then that's the way you make it, important to legacy, is because your peers and the coaches that you coach or that coach against you have named you that.
Sure.
And then you figure out some way to have the pomp and circumstance that's All-Star Weekend without, faking this game or trying to have a 4-team, whatever the hell they're doing in a week, out there, like, or a couple weeks out there in San Francisco.
I just think it's a disservice. Like, again, I agree with you. The All-Star game in its current iteration is stupid. Maybe the new change helps. I understand all the problems with All-Star Weekend, and I share them. But at the end of the day, the All-Star game should be a reflection of the talent in the league. And to have the NBA's leading rebounder in Domantas Sabonis staying at home, the NBA's leading assist getter in Trae Young staying at home, LaMelo Ball, who led the entire NBA, or at least the Eastern Conference, with in fan vote. We got into that on it. I'm dying on that hill. It's okay, right? Like, he's 4th in points per game and 9th in assists per game on the Hornets, right? Like, you have players like De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento, but like Norman Powell on the Clippers, who's maybe the only chance that he could ever get to be an All-Star, and he's been one of the better guards in the West, right? Like, this is something that it feels like, to honor the current state of the game with how much talent there is, just expand it, even if it doesn't fix it, even if it doesn't change the game, just expand it to honor the proper amount of people who are quote-unquote All-Stars.
Okay, but again, like, the reason why the NBA won't do it is because look at how much buzz they got.
But there would still be snubs.
But they've got more buzz because of the snubs than they did because of the roster, right? And if you expand it to 15, doesn't that kind of water down your argument about importance of it? Because
no, I don't think
now
so.
More guys get in than used to, and there's all that BS about it too. Like, great, you can expand it to 15. It still means very little to me overall, to be honest.
If you expand it to 15, you're still looking at one of Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, De'Aaron Fox, like Norman Powell, that's still going, Domantas Sabonis, that are still going to be snubbed. So I think the snub conversation still goes in there. It's not perfect. I think they should expand it just because why not? Like, I don't see the negative to doing that. You could say it's watered down, but I just don't personally agree with that. And I do think that Devin had a case to be an All-Star this year. I think he deserves to be looped in among the snubs, but out of all the years that he has been snubbed or that he has missed it, I agree with you, Espo, where this is the least upset I've been about it. I was prepared for it, and I wasn't shocked. Right? It is what it is. And even Book feels that way. He says, quote, obviously it's something that I wanted to be a part of, but definitely not going to complain about taking a week to regroup with the family. So it's always going to be a conversation every year. Who got snubbed, who didn't, and there's a lot of people that are deserving.
Well, look, and expectations come into play. They will when it comes to All-Star voting. Mm-hmm. There was an immense amount of expectations on Devin Booker, on Kevin Durant, and this entire Phoenix Suns team, especially with them coming off of their Olympic run as well. They haven't lived up to those expectations, and that plays a role in it. And I know that sounds weird because Kevin Durant got in, but Kevin Durant at age 36 and what he's doing, it's tough to deny that he should be a part of it, right?
I think unequivocally he's above that in the chain of command.
And then you add in the immense fan base he has across not just the country, but the world, then that solidifies him. Again, Devin Booker doesn't have that. Plus you put in all the narrative factors. It doesn't surprise me.
No, it's not surprising. You know what they got to do? Take Mark Dagnall out. Let Devin Booker coach the team. That's how you fix All-Star Weekend. Sure. Which I don't even know how the coaching stuff is going to work. They're going to split it all up, but we're still going to talk about it. We're going to break it down.
Don't you need 3 coaches?
Let Devin coach.
Yeah, I go.
Hashtag let Book coach.
Let celebrities coach. Who cares?
Let us know down in the comments below if you think Devin Booker got robbed of being an all-star this year, or if Espo is spot on, if I'm spot on, or we're both stupid. Let us know down in the comments below. As long as you hit that like button, it helps us out so much here at PHNX Sports. And you hit that subscribe button. So many new subscribers in the new year for PHNX Sports. We're on the way to 40K. Help us and be a part of our journey by hitting that subscribe button.
Let the mascots coach. Hell, let the mascots play on All-Star Weekend.
We fixed All-Star Weekend. But can we fix the Phoenix Suns? Trade rumors, more games, all of that coming up. PHNX Suns, of course, has you covered, not just with stuff like Southwest Bias, but our live shows, pregame, postgame shows on every single game, plus 3 p.m. shows. Lots of trades mixed in there, of course, all over at gophnx.com as well. And while you're there, check out Cardinals, Diamondbacks, Wildcats, Sun Devils, Southwest Bias, Mercury Rising, so much more over on gophnx.com. So that's the checklist.
Sun Devils, it's fine.
All right. The checklist is you subscribe to PHNX Sports,
Ding.
you hit the like button, you go over to
Ding.
gophnx.com, hit
Ding,
the
ding.
bookmark button, and now you are the most informed Arizona sports fan out there. We will see y'all next week for more editions of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.